Good morning. It is Thursday already. Where did the week go? John Shepherd McKenzie here. I've got a message out of our daily lectionary readings. This one's from James 4. Do not speak evil against one another, brethren. He that speaks evil against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge. He is able to save and to destroy. But who are you that you judge your neighbor? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and get gain. Whereas you do not know about tomorrow. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live, and we shall do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Well, I've been using the medieval list, or actually early the medieval, from the Dark Ages even, the list of the 7 deadly sins in my preaching of late. Last Sunday we had the sin of envy, but today the sin of pride looms large. In fact, it's the first one in the most commonly accepted list. Pride, envy, anger, covetousness, sloth, gluttony, lust. There are some variations on that. Pride is probably better translated into modern English as arrogance. It has to do with elevating myself above the level of you, of anyone who doesn't agree with me, of those who ought to be slaves while I ought to be the master, of God himself, for I know better than God. That is the logical outcome of arrogance. It is the sin of arrogance on display in the garden. When the serpent says to the woman, you will not die if you eat of that tree, but you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Oh, to elevate oneself from being a mere creature in order to become like the Creator, perhaps even superior to the Creator. How could anyone resist that? And the man and the woman in the garden do not resist that. Arrogance says that I know better than God. Arrogance says that my decisions ought to be something that God supports. Arrogance says that my values are something that God will come around to in the long run if God can think as well as I think. Arrogance looks at my neighbor as someone to be despised, exploited, taken advantage of, or seen as probative. Arrogance destroys Christian communities. And yesterday I talked about one of the great values of the kingdom that Jesus teaches is humility. Humility is quite the opposite of arrogance. It's particularly hard teaching catechism kids these days because they have been instilled with the gospel of self-esteem in the schools, and that's pride, pride, pride all the time. Now, if we distinguish between arrogance and pride, pride does not necessarily have to be an evil. To be proud of your school means you probably won't vandalize it. To be proud of your family means maybe you'll find your proper place in that family and be respectful to your parents and loving to your siblings. To have pride in your nation means you'll take civic responsibility. So it's not always bad for one to have pride, but pride quickly glides into arrogance, and then it becomes sin. So it's tough getting that distinction across to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Heck, it's tough getting that distinction across to grown adults who've been in the church all of their lives. There is a certain humility that befits those who have been bought with a price. There is a certain humility for those who recognize that God is God, and it is my duty to love, serve, and obey that God. There is a certain humility knowing that I'm nothing but a mist. If God chooses not to remember me into eternity, I'm finished. But God has promised to remember me into eternity. I'm quite dependent on God. I ought not to be pushing him off the throne and sitting there myself. Have a great day in the Lord. God bless.